is day one of the writing boot camp, and we're going to be going over MLA 9th edition formatting and the ADA 7th edition formatting. So today I'm going to be helping you guys out. My name is Caroline. I'm a tutor at the Writing Center in room 2210. So MLA, or the Modern Language Association style, it's used in various humanities disciplines. You'll see this a lot in your ENC 1101 and 1102. You can take a look at the website, the MLA website, to get more information from the actual website, or you can look at Purdue OWL. They give great templates, great examples online, and I think that's a very, very good resource. Also, Miami-Dade College has one. Learning Resources has a template for MLA and APA format. So what does MLA regulate? So it helps with document formats, in-text citations, and works cited lists. So essentially with document format, that's a whole format of your essay. In-text citations are related, they have a relationship with the works cited page because they always refer back to your works cited page, which will be at the end of your paper. So the 9th edition, which is the most updated version, it focuses on clarification, guidance, and expansion on the MLA 8th edition. Now, I wouldn't worry too much about, oh, this is the edition. I would just worry that, what edition does your professor want? That's what's really going to matter, because your professor, even though the most up-to-date version is the 9th edition, your professor might want a different edition. That's why I say go to Purdue OWL or check out the MLA website to see what edition your professor wants. That's the most important thing. So when thinking about citing an MLA, think about simple traits shared by most works. Remember that there are more than one ways to cite the same and make your documentation useful. So when using, for the last one, it's kind of cut off, but you want to make sure that you're using useful resources for you to actually cite. So overall, this presentation will cover the general guidelines, the first page format, section headings, in-text citations, and documenting sources in MLA style. So again, always follow your instructor's guidelines. Might be a little bit different than I've seen a lot of students. Their professor will say MLA, 9th edition, but it will not be MLA 9th edition. It will look completely different, which that's what your professor wants, because your professor is grading 90 papers. So he or she is looking for a specific form to make sure that everything is checked off the list. There's a certain uniformity, and if you can follow those rules, that shows a lot about your character as a student. So basic things, it must be typed on white 8.5 by 11 inch papers. It has to be double spaced everything. Just use 12-point Times New Roman. You can use similar clear forms like Arial or Calibri, but use 12-point Times New Roman. That's something that's accepted widely. Leave only one space after punctuation. So when you put that period, use one space after, just to identify each sentence. And then set all margins to 1 inch on all sides. Sometimes it can get a little janky. Just look for the margins and check your settings. I recommend, if you're having any confusions about how to set up your paper, go to YouTube. Someone will share their screen. If your margins look a little out of whack, if you don't know how to change your font, anything like that, someone on YouTube will help you. They can, depending on what format, if you're using Google Docs, if you're using Microsoft Word, they will share their screen and they will help you. It really just depends on if you know what you're looking for. So do you know that you're looking for what a hanging indent is? Do you know what you're looking for on changing the font? Do you know what you're looking for as far as margins? And then, of course, make sure you indent the first line of each paragraph. So it should have a header with page numbers located in the upper right-hand corner. You're going to right-hand corner, right? And you're going to use italics for titles of container words. So that's like books, quotation marks within sources, chapters within books, and endnotes on a separate page before the list of works cited. So with endnotes, I haven't seen too many professors require this, so I don't want to overwhelm you with that, but you may be required to do endnotes. So the first page of an individually written MLA style paper will have no title page unless it is a group project. So that's something to know. You will not have an independent title page. It's going to simply almost be some sort of header. But with a group project, if you have several people, you're going to have an independent page. So everything's going to be double spaced. You're going to list your name, your instructor's name, the course, date, and this is all going to be in the upper left-hand corner. Then, after you do that, you're going to center the paper title in the middle, okay? Use standard caps, no underlining, italics, quote marks, or boldface. Nothing like that is required. And then you're going to create a header in the upper right-hand corner, half an inch from the top, with your last name and the page number. And again, if you don't know how to do the page number, for example, Lucas 1 up here, if you don't know how to do that, you can look up how to do a page number header on the appropriate format. So here we have an example of Charlotte Lucas. Her professor's name is Dr. J. Austin. The course she's in is English Language 106, and she put the number 106. And notice with the date, you're gonna put day, month, year. A lot of students will get this mixed up. You're gonna put day, month, year, not month, year, month, day, year, okay? And then finally, we have the title in the middle. Make sure you do that. And we have that indentation for the first paragraph, as you see. Everything is double spaced, and it's as simple as that. So section headings. You're not going to see many section headings. I wouldn't, again, worry too much about this. It also depends on how you write. You can have a discussion with your professor about what you independently would like to do. But these are some examples of section headings. So headings in an essay should be numbered. You can have them numbers. Headings should be consistent in grammar and formatting, but otherwise they are up to you stylistically. You just have to be consistent. Now, something headings are good for if you're doing some sort of research project or you're trying to do some sort of stylistic thing or something creative. It's definitely good. You can play around. Your essay is yours, and with that, you want to convey a specific message, you can most definitely have headings. Talk to your professor about it or do it, but do it in the right way independently. So sample sections. So numbered, all, flush, bold. So these are some sample section headings. So as you can see on the left, we have a section for soil conservation, and it goes all the way to underneath. There's erosion and terracing for that. So there's 1, and then there's 1.1 and 1.2, denoting that it all goes to soil conservation. Now we have water conservation, that's the second point, but there's no underneath ones. And then there's energy conservation. Now on the right hand side, we have a different style that the individual is using. It's a level 1 bold flush left, and they're always with MLA headings. You'll notice it's always usually to the left, and then they may put them to the center. If they're switching it out, but it has to be consistent. Your professor has to see that consistency. So in-text citations. So this is very important. We're getting into in-text citations. I want you guys to listen to this. It's a brief reference in your text that indicates the source you consulted. It should be direct readers. It should direct to the entry in your works cited list for that source, and it should be direct. It should be unobtrusive, so you don't want it to distract the reader from what you're trying to convey. They should be able to see that. So, oh, I like what you said there. Let me look at that text if they want to further read up on things, if it's in their general pool of what they're interested in researching. In general, the in-text citation will be the author's last name or abbreviated title with a page number enclosed in parentheses. And we'll look at some examples. So right here, we have some examples of in-text. So if you notice right here, we have Wordsworth. So we already have the last name of the author. So that's why this in-text citation only has in parentheses 263, which denotes the page number. Now, you're going to put those parentheses around it, and it's going to be before the period. A lot of students get confused, they'll put it after. And you're not going to put it in the quotations either. You're going to put it outside of the quotations, but inside of the sentence, you're going to embed it in there. Now, for this next sentence, we do not let the reader know that it's Wordsworth. So we're going to specify Wordsworth 260. And then for the following one, we let the writer know. And then this is the full, on the bottom, it's the full citation. So for the following print source, so there's a bunch of different sources. And my recommendation, again, is to go to Purdue OWL and look it up. You can find everything from sample papers to specific sources. It's going to look different for citing, a book, a print book, to citing a website, to citing a social media post, which is valid for research nowadays. You need to cite everything if you're taking a photo from something. So it's going to look different accordingly. And I can show you a general outline, but it's constantly being updated, and also it's going to look differently according to everything. So, I have 46 slides just on this alone, but we could go in depth forever. So you're going to need to look it up each time you don't know. So if the essay provides a signal word or phrase, usually the author's last name, the citation does not even include the information. So we just went over that, and that's what's happening here with Kenneth Burke and number 3, and it's essentially the same thing. So how to cite a work with no known author. So don't worry about it. So this, and again, we're still on in-text citations. You're going to give like about 3 or 4, if it's a long title, 3 or 4 words of the title, and you're going to put in quotation marks for your in-text citation. And then you're going to put the page number. Remember, no commas in between the the last name, or if, for example, here we have the title, you're not going to have that comma in between that and the page number. So when author and title are not enough, if 2 or more works by the same author have the same title, more information is needed to clearly reference a specific item on your works cited in square brackets after the title. So in your works cited, if there's an author, you'll find that this does not happen much, but sometimes it could conceivably happen where there's 2 different works by the same author, especially if you're very passionate about that author, it could happen conceivably. So use brackets to, let the reader know what piece it is. Corresponding entry in the list of works cited. So this is a corresponding one that would be happen with the unknown author. So that's going back to the first example that we had. You would just put the title and then go on. So authors with same last name. So this is for in-text citations. Although some medical ethicists claim that cloning will lead to designer children. And then we have the author and the page number. Now, we have clearly an author, two authors on our works cited page, right? Because they're two independent entities. And so we want to specify which one it is. So if we have like a Ronald Miller and then let's say a Watkins Miller, we're going to put that R period to say we're talking about Ronald Miller. And that's what it's denoting. Or here we have A Miller. So let's say that that's Alexander Miller. You know, we want to be able, we want clarity. That's really what formatting is all about. Works by multiple authors. So this just happens with 3 or more authors, and you're going to use that et al. It's a Latin phrase. So it's et al. Period. Okay, so we have Smith et al. So it's essentially he or she is embedding the name in the sentence, and then they're putting the page number after. So that's embedding the name like we've seen before. Now, the second example that we see, Smith et al. Period 76, and this is a form of actually putting the parenthetical or in-text citation at the end. So yes, that would be it. Now for this third example, it's just 2 authors, so Strong and Ellis 23. So with two authors, it's just the 2, an and in between it and the page number. Other in-text citations, so for 3 in-text citations. So for this one, what we see are some examples of ones that we do not know the authors. And then for here, visual studies, or where we have, well, we know the authors, but we have it, there's multiple works. So we put the page number, and that's what's going on here. And we didn't specify an Elkins down here, so we put Elkins and then visual studies 63. So you want to be specifying if you have several different ones. So we were kind of talking about that earlier. So for multi-volume works, again, you just want to specify things. And to do that, you would specify the volume or the verse, like we have down here with Ezekiel 1, 5 through 10, verse 1, 5 through 10. So, you know, you want to specify what that is with your in-text citation. So citing indirect sources. So with indirect sources, you're going to want to put ones that they're not your primary sources. You know, you're going to want to put QTD period in Wiseman, and the last name, and then the page number. I wouldn't worry too much about that. It's not going to have so much. You guys are just starting out, so don't worry about it, but it's something to note. Now, for multiple citations, again, we have, sometimes you'll find yourself in a paragraph or something. For this last one, where it says multiple citations, you'll see, you'll be writing and you'll have gotten stuff, maybe paraphrasing from 2 different pages. So put the last name and then put the 2 different or 3 different pages you got it from. So this person had it on 138 and 141. So works in time-based media. So if you have an actual video clip, you're going to want to put that time, that specific time, if you got a quote from it, especially if you're watching a movie that's 2 hours long. Your professor might really like it and want to see where it was, see the dramatic effect of it, or tone. Now for your works cited entry, at the end, that's what it's going to look like. And this does not have a hanging indent here, but there would be a hanging indent. And I'm not exactly sure what happened with this PowerPoint as far as the hanging indent, but I do have another PowerPoint where you'll see an example of hanging indent. So other indentations, we have here Garland Thomas. So sources without page numbers, you just put the name. Corresponding works cited, so that would be the example of the actual works cited. Formatting short quotations in prose. So in text examples, so for prose, for poetry, things of that nature, you're going to put the specific page number, the last name, and that's for a short prose, a little excerpt. And for here, you see how folks was embedded in the sentence, and they put it at the end. So it looks a little bit differently accordingly. So the quote for the first one is right after, is in between. So folks 184 was put in between, like right after the quote, right? But for the last one, if you noticed, it was put at the end. There's a quote right before it. So notice little things like that. And I do want to say, don't beat yourself up about not understanding everything. So formatting long quotations. So this is an example of an in-text one, Bronte. So you introduce it, and then you have the actual last name, the page number. And there's this thing called block text that you usually will use that differentiates it. If you notice, it doesn't start on the line before, but it starts on the line after. Usually it's not indented, and if you also notice, there's no quotation marks or anything for the quote, the actual quote. And for long quotes, it's for MLA, it's 4 lines or more, I believe. So quoting 1 to 3 lines of poetry would just be as is. So 31 to 32, it's pretty basic as far as that. So use block quotations for 3 or more lines of poetry. The poem is formatted in an unusual way, reproduce the unique formatting as accurately as possible. So what you want to do with that, there are some ways in which formatting does occur, especially I think of Allen Ginsberg. He uses a lot of unique forms of poetry. Sometimes they can even make letters out of their poetry. So you want to keep the integrity of that in whatever way possible, but sometimes that's very hard. Don't beat yourself up about it. I would say even sometimes you can get a photo of it and then cite that source. But if you'd actually like an in-text citation where your professor wants that, then most definitely do it in the best way you can. So adding and omitting words. So we do this a lot. So this is adding words. I don't necessarily add words a lot, but it's for clarification essentially. So in quotations, sometimes whenever you're stating something, you need to add some context clues for the reader to provide clarity. So you put all of these things in brackets. And for omitting words, you would put dot, 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 because they're not pertinent essentially to what your overall thought is. So we're excited, the basics. Essentially, you need your author, you need the title of the source, title of containers, but whatever, other contributors, version, number, publisher, publication date, location. And this is your end works cited page. It's called the works cited page. It will be at the end of your paper. So now we're going to take a look at different types of works cited pages, because they're going to look different according to what type of, if you have like a book, or if you have you know, a video, anything of that nature. So notice the hanging indent that we have. Baron Naomi asked, so that's the author that we went off with, and this is how you'd cite it. So again, this is something where I really recommend you go to Purdue Owl. They also have a citation generator that will really assist in putting things in. What I recommend though is the best thing to know is that you have to be an expert in finding these key elements on your page, because sometimes the generator, if you put the link, won't know where to find them, and you as a human being can do a better job at it. So works cited list, title of source, so specific title of the source. So books and websites should be in italics, periodicals, journals, and songs should be in quotation marks. So this is something to note. Um, I don't want to overwhelm you guys again with this because it's something you're going to have to look back over because you're going to forget it. You can take notes on it. I most definitely recommend doing that. So pause the video, take notes on it. Books and websites should be in italics. And that periodicals, television episodes, and songs should be in quotations. So now title of container, a work that contains another work. So these are some examples. The future of book, edited, so you would be specifying what it is. So things to consider. So what on Blackboard, when it links you to another website, that's not a container. When something like a lecture is published on it, so on Blackboard, there's a lecture published on it, so that makes it a container. On Amazon, when you download an ebook from it, that's not a container. When a customer review is published on the site, that's a specific container. So for Google, when it displays snippets of text in the results page of a search, not a container. But when it publishes an original artwork such as Google Doodle, and there's different forms that Google has created. And then Facebook, when you click on a link to a news that takes you to another website, or when a user publishes or comments on a link or post, that is a container. Okay, so we're almost done with the MLA, and then we're going to go over to the APA, but let's finish off strong. So other contributors, people, groups, or organizations that contribute without being its primary creator, you always need to give credit where credit is due, so that's where you consider those. Now versions are constantly being updated, just like, MLA, Sound Line. This is the most up-to-date version, so you're constantly seeing up-to-date versions. So make sure that you put in the proper version. So number, it indicates position in sequence. So if it has a specific sequence, you're going to put the number. The source is part of a numbered sequence, such as multi-volume book or journal with book volume and issue numbers. Those numbers should be listed in your citation. And oftentimes you'll see like those books, they'll have like, Britannica, they'll have like numbers and stuff. So if you can visualize that, that's essentially what you're doing there whenever you're citing it. Publisher, primarily responsible entity for producing the work or making it available to the public. So the publisher who published the actual thing, because of course you have the person who published the piece or wrote the piece, but who published it, what company published it, and it distributes the source. So you're going to want to list that. So then you're also going to want to definitely, acknowledge the date that it was published. Sometimes you can't always find this. Don't worry, every information that you can find is information that is invaluable. So location, it specifies works location such as page range. So if you have a specific page range that you're working with, you can specify that, especially if you're getting it, like, let's say a PDF online or from a specific scholarly journal. Sometimes a page range is very, very important. And it's more clear. So these are some optional elements. Date of original publication. So this can happen if you get it from another source and then the original thing, and then the original publication, and then you have city of publication. It will have specific ones where you can get it. So if you notice here, it was republished like in 1992, but initially like 1782. So these are things to consider um, that individuals um, may consider. So optional elements, I think this is good to know. URLs are optional, but they are almost always included. Object identifier, I have never used one of those. If you guys have, you have, or if your professor requires that, I have personally never used one. Date of access, that's pretty normal to use. And I've usually always used the date of access. So annotated bibliography, it's another thing that's optional, but essentially it's describing each source and giving them a description of every source that you went through. So your professor knows that you actually read the source. And at the end of an entry with a 1-inch indentation from where the entry begins, can be a concise phrase or complete sentences, but not exceed a single paragraph. So usually what I see is about a paragraph that your professor wants for an annotated bibliography. But it's a little cut off here. Essentially, it's like, well, it can be as small as a sentence, but a sentence to like 5 sentences of, so you have the citing right there of Spinoza, and then a comprehensive work. So it's right under it, just describing it essentially. And this is Al Purdue or Purdue Al. So head over there, Al, or that's the information, but check out the website. That's really what I recommend. So now let's take a look at the APA 7th edition. We're going to start sharing that. So this is going to be a little shorter. So what is formatting? And this is more basic, general idea. So it's appearance and presentation of a work. It covers everything relating to font, general layout, quotations, references. It includes punctuation and style, point of view, clarity, and diction. So whenever it says point of view, that's first, second, or third person point of view. Now, in a lot of research papers in APA format, because it's more scientific, you can use first person point of view because it's your research project. However, there is a need for professionalism, so it's where it needs to be accordingly. It depends on the type of essay you have. So many different formatting styles. So here it's a little rundown of the different types. There's APA, MLA, Chicago, AP. So Chicago is going to be used if you're a history buff, you're probably definitely going to use that. And then if you go into journalism, AP. Why is formatting important? So makes the work look more professional. It allows readers to navigate the work with relative ease, promotes consistency across various disciplines, and shows that the writer can follow directions. So I really would direct your attention to the last one because that's what your professor wants, and then to the second one, allows the reader to navigate the work with relative ease. And then with promotes consistency across various disciplines, certain disciplines, they favor certain types of formatting. So with APA, it is favored in the social sciences like sociology, psychology, and those are, and even in STEM, they do use APA a lot. And it makes your work look more professional if you have uniformity. So let's talk about APA. So it's most commonly used to cite within the social sciences, as we talked about. It favors language that is concise and straightforward. You're not trying to talk about your feelings, you're trying to present the information that you found, that you either did some sort of literature review on, or that you found your own data from. It avoids poetic or figurative language that you'd often find in MLA formatting, and it encourages an active voice. So that's we interpreted results versus results were interpreted because it's your research project. And it allows for first person point of view. So general APA guidelines, it should be typed double spaced with 1-inch margins, 12-point font. You can use Arial, Calibri, or similar professional fonts. Again, whenever I say this, I'm going to pause. Your professor will have something on the outline letting you guys know, clarifying things, and that is the most important aspect of all of this. So it does have a title page, a student APA title page, and professional paper APA title page. I'm going to focus on the student APA title page. Looks a little bit different. We'll briefly go over the professional paper APA one, but essentially the one. Then it's going to have an abstract, the main body, and references, which is like an MLA. It's different than MLA in that it's called references, but it's the same thing. It's your compilation of resources. So student title page components, there's a title, it's focus, direct, and then the author's name, and then without degrees like doctor and PhD, it's just the author's names. It's the institutional affiliation. So you're gonna have like Miami-Dade College, and then you're also gonna like have what part of Miami-Dade College, like English department. Course number and name, instructors' names, assignment, due date, and page number on top right, and it's just a page number. It's not your last name. So right here we have an example. Some things I want to note. So you see just the one, there's no last name. You see how the title is emboldened, right? And it's a short, simple, double space title. We have about 3 spaces in between. Then we have Poly Purdue, that is the name of the student. Then we have Department of English, comma, Purdue University. So if it was at Miami-Dade, Department of English, comma, Miami-Dade College. Then we have the class number, and the course name that you would specify. Then you have the professor's name. Now, the professor's name, you would denote the title of the professor if it's a doctor. And then you have the date. Now, the date is different from MLA in that it is month, day, year. So professional paper title page components, we just went over that. I do want to notice, I want to note, I'll go back to this, the Purdue Online, the title, it's also going to go on the first page of your body paragraph. You'll be putting that on it as well. So you kind of reiterate it. So now for a professional paper, you're usually going to have some sort of author note with your information. This is an example. I don't want to overwhelm you, but that would be at the bottom with contact information. And then you're also going to have what's called a hanging indent, and a hanging indent is your title, again, just across, and you'll be able to see it throughout the paper. And again, look up the formatting if you do not know how to do it. Look it up. So abstract, if necessary, you don't always necessarily need to do an abstract, but you can. So, it should, it does not need to be indented. It should be centered and bold with the word abstract, and then it's going to be about 250 words, a little bit under that. And you can, underneath an abstract, you can put the keywords, because essentially an abstract is just kind of showing the reader like what the scholarly journal is going to be about, and they can, brief by, oh, is that what I want to read, or is that not what I want to read? That's what an abstract is. So right here, we have an example. So you see emboldened, abstract, and then we do not have an indent, which is important to note, under 250 words, and then keywords, which is italicized, and those are the keywords. And of course, this is in like Latin, so you can't read it, but that's the general aspect of it, and it is in it's double spaced. So in-text citations, in APA, they are different. So they have the last name and then comma, and they have the year. So they're different in that manner. That's the general outline if you're paraphrasing. Now, if you're giving a direct quote, you are going to want to also put the page number, and it's going to look a little bit different. So when referring to titles within the paper, capitalize all major words, italicize titles of longer works, put quotation marks around titles of shorter works. So these are just some specific rules. Again, you can jot them down, write them down right now, and look back over at Purdue Owl if you want some clarification later. So citing short quotations. So these are some short quotations. So we have the page number here. Now, we already put, according to Jones, 1998, we already quoted Jones right there, the last name. So we denoted, hey, it's Jones, and we also put the year. So we're good there. Now we have to put the page number of that quote. Okay, so that's why it's cited in this manner. Now you can also like this for the second one, where you put Jones, comma, the year, comma, page number. Stylistically, however you like to do it, but make sure you put that page number after the quote to clarify for the reader. So citing long quotations, you're going to be using block text, so that's 40 words or longer. That's similar to the MLA where it's 4 lines or longer, and you're just going to block it, put a block. And you may be using this more in APA rather than in, let's say, MLA, essentially, if you're analyzing a certain thing. And place parenthetical citation after the closing punctuation mark. And you're going to be putting the parenthetical citation. So you see right here at the end, we have the page number that it actually it does pertain to. And at the beginning is Jones's. We have the year, and that's how you would set it up. Really, as you see consistently, it's just all about setting it up properly. So reference list, or in MLA, how it's called the work cited, reference list, it should be just called references, centered and bolded. So it's bolded at the top of the page. Do not indent the first line of each entry. Only indent lines after the first one. So that's called hanging indentation. I highly recommend, if you're not familiar with that, to Google how to do a hanging indent on Word. You can YouTube, they'll share their screen, and they'll show you how to do it mechanically. Entries should be alphabetized, and I didn't mention this in MLA, I always forget, but alphabetical order. So this is an example of a reference list. So you see how it's in alphabetical order, and you see how we have the name, the year, and so on and so forth. For help citing, so it requires formatting depending on types of sources. So it's different according to articles, books, websites, encyclopedias, government documents. So again, there's a citation machine. I recommend to go to Purdue Owl, and you can click on MLA formatting or APA formatting, whatever, and there'll be like a little citation generator at the top. Of course, sometimes you need to fill in some of the parts that don't make sense, but it will italicize certain things if you put in, let's say, the publisher, or whatever needs to be done, it will format it correctly as long as you plug in the correct information. So other resources that are amazing for you as a student, the Bedford Handbook, publication manual of the American Psychological Association. So it's the official one for APA. The APA website, something you'll probably be looking at more. Purdue Owl, my favorite personally. And then there's already many databases will provide ready-made APA citations for you. So also, just a word about sources before you go out and you start doing in-text citations and stuff. We want reliable, useful, accurate information. You do not want to get information that's not reliable. That's why your professor will ask you to go to the library. Whenever you go to the library, it's also virtual library. You can go to the database. There's something called Google Scholar, if you guys have not heard of it, which if you're logged in on a computer at the university or at Miami-Dade College, it will connect it will connect you to full articles related to whatever you're studying, whether that be disability studies, let's say race in American society, and you can click on the first article. It will also give you a citation these are reliable peer-reviewed sources. It's peer-reviewed. A lot of different academics have sifted through this and seen if it's reliable rather than just a Facebook article about natural healing, which we're not quite sure if that's right or not. You know, maybe your friend just shared it and you don't really know. We don't want inaccurate information spread around. Um, we don't want it to be propaganda, obviously. And another thing I want to note is you don't want it to be too old. Now, of course, depending on what major you're in, maybe you want something old if you're a history major. But that's a form of analysis rather than an actual like literature review where you're using it to back up your information. So usually professors nowadays, they require 2015 and beyond, and I've even seen as like 2018 and beyond. Um, and also consider, are there broad generalizations not backed up by evidence? So whenever you're looking at the different works that you're trying to cite, um, you know, what's their logic? Is the logic concrete? And you can kind of start getting an idea from titles and also from the abstracts and furthermore, and also talk to the librarian. So if you have any further questions, don't hesitate to come by the Writing Center in 2210. We have an ENC 1113 course that will be really helpful for people if they're insecure about their grammar. And also we have, of course, our 30 to 45-minute sessions with the tutor where we can brainstorm, organize your writing assignments, and just give some feedback. So please come and visit us and make sure you guys just cite reliable evidence and that you guys speak to your professor, communicate with them, okay? So it's been a pleasure, and I hope you have a great day.